So good evening to all the members gathered here. We are here to have a CPE on the income tax return forms, which is the other ITR forms for the year 2021, which has been released right now. And we are also here for the key updates for the financial year 2021, that is assessment year 21-22. So this will be presented by our speaker, CA Uttam Chand P. Jain. So before going to the speaker and giving his introduction, I request our chairman to give the welcome speech. Over to chairman.
Okay, thank you, sir. Respected past chairman, senior members, friends and colleagues, today's speaker is Uttam Chand Jain and behalf of the managing committee. Good evening to all. Today's topic is change in ITR forms and key updates for financial year 2021 in related to our CA profession. In the current scenario, the Income Tax Department has issued various circulars and notifications on regular interval basis. So our today faculty will explain changes, ITR forms and the key updates for the financial year 2021. Once again, welcome you all. Few words to introduce our faculty, Sri Uttam Chand P. Jain. He is a BCom graduate from AIM Jain College, Chennai, and fellow Chartered Accountants of India in practice since 1996. He is a partner in UG and Associate Chennai. Contribution to the professional bodies and organizations through positions held. Past management committee members, Chartered Accountants Study Circle Chennai, 2 terms of 3 years. Past editor, CASC monthly bulletin for 6 years, March 2017, 100 plus pages. Past president, Association Chartered Accounts Chennai. Past co-op member, Library Committee, SARC of ICI. Past co-op member, Students Committee, SARC of ICI. Committee member, Seminar, Public Relations and Membership Development Committee, PCAS, Mumbai for the year 2019-20, 2021. Application. Actively participate in the revisions of publication of ICA, statement of peer review, practitioner guide to audit of small entities, guidance note and bank audit 2018, etc. A guide to tax audit, co-author of CAP Anand, 2 editions published by Chartered Accounts Study Circle. Tax Proposal 2017, Tariff Tax Proposals published by Associate Chartered Accounts Chennai. Tax Proposal 2020, Tariff Tax Proposals published by Association of Chartered Accounts Chennai. Statutory Bank Audit, Statutory Branch Bank Audit 2020 for checklist. Paper presentations on bank audit, tax audit, income tax matters at SARC, various branches of SARC ICI, CB chapters of SARC of ICI, SICASA of SARC of ICI. At annual residential seminar of Association of Chartered Accountants Chennai, and at monthly meeting of Association of Chartered Accountants Chennai, Society of Auditors Chennai. Group leader of case studies at Bombay Chartered Account Societies Mumbai, Chamber of Tax Consultants Mumbai, Chartered Accountants Study Circle, Association Chartered Accountants. Trainer Tally special classes for Chartered Accountants, Tally Solutions Private Limited initiatives. Trainer National Academic of Customs, Excise and Narcotics and ICI initiatives. Trainer Department Officials, Service Tax and Excise and ICI initiative. Faculty IIT and Advanced ITTI, ICI courses, Tally accounting packages. Faculty ONGC in-house executive development program, ICI initiatives. Guest lectures at colleges, various chambers and associations. Membership, life member, Bombay Chartered Accountants Societies at Mumbai. Life member, the Chamber of Tax Consultants at Mumbai. Life member, Chartered Accountants Study Circle at Chennai. Member, Association Chartered Accountants Chennai. Member, Lodge Accountant number 194. Life member, the Rajasthan Association, Tamil Nadu. Family background, he is a first generation Chartered Accountant He happily married to Manju Devi. He blessed with 3 daughters and a son. Eldest daughter is a chartered accountant in practice. Once again, I thank you everybody. Sir, please continue the session, sir.
Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Respected Chairman, other office bearers of Tirchi branch of SIRC of ICI, members, ladies and gentlemen, good evening to one and all. Now we are all on virtual, so more on virtual and more on learning process without seeing each other. It is becoming a bit difficult to do it, but we have to live with it. We don't have an option right now. The subject which is given to me is income tax return forms, the new forms which are there, which have been notified, and there are a lot of lacuna in the return forms. So let us start learning into the income tax return forms, which are partly available right now for filing, partly not available. So we are going to speak in vacuum, because always there is the issue relating to the form per se notified and the form which is literally given to us to file. We have been carried away by whatever has been said to us. We always try to follow whatever is said to us. We just say that someone say take left, we take left. Someone say take right, we take right. We don't even look into it. For example, your online filing of all other forms than the return form. We have been filing because department said you have to file. So we are filing it without even looking at whether it is legally correct to file it or not to file it. So with this background, let us get into the subject proper. Income tax return forms for assessment year 2021. So my agenda today will be to introduce the subject, get into the sections and rules which are relevant to the return filing, then the forms which have got notified, the due dates for it, the importance of filing the correct ITR, what happens if I don't file the correct ITR, all those issues we'll look into it, and then we'll get into the forms per se and find out which form is applicable to form, which person, and then also the changes in the forms for assessment year 2021. This is the agenda for the day. So with this agenda, let us proceed further. So introduction, the return form filing is captured in the procedure for assessment. This is the first baby step for the assessment procedure to be done. And the section which is stipulated for this is section 139. 139(1) is the, and 139(4)(a), 4(c), all other the provisions are there. So section 139 is the section which triggers the filing of return, and this is the first step in the procedure for assessment. So it is captured in chapter 14. And the most important section which we forget to read is section 139 capital C, 139 capital D, which are relevant to what can be filed along with the return, what should not be filed along with the return, what is the return which is to be filed online. And section 140. Section 140 is person who is going to sign the return, who is verifying the return, who can verify the return. And the relevant rules are Rule 12, that is the forms which are notified return forms, Rule 117A and Rule 125. These are the rules which are relevant to section 139. And then we go to the penalties which can be imposable, though there is no penalty per se for not filing a return, but there could be other penalties coming because of wrong filing of the return. And the prosecution for non-filing the return or giving a wrong verification is covered under section 277, and anyone abating to the wrong filing of verification of a return is section 278, and section 279A says that the offences under section 277 and the offences under section 278 are non-cognizable. In other words, the ITO cannot levy or cannot prosecute you. It is the court which has to prosecute. Now coming to section 139(1). Section 139(1) talks about the procedure for filing for an assessment, for filing of a return. And it says for a company or a firm, it is compulsory to file a return. So firm includes LLP also. In case of others, only when the income is exceeding the maximum amount not chargeable to tax, then only you have to file a return for other cases. So only company and firm, it is compulsory. For others, only when the maximum amount chargeable to tax is exceeded. Then you have to furnish a return, and the return has to be in the prescribed form and verified in the prescribed manner, setting forth such other particulars as may be prescribed. So in the return form, they prescribe the return. Section 139C, this is the most powerful section, which many of us don't read at all. Section 139 capital C empowers the board to create a rule for such class or classes of person to dispense with furnishing of documents, statement, receipts, certificates, reports of audit, very relevant, reports of audit or any other document except under section 139D, whatever is said. So 139D, if it is requiring you to do something, then you will do it. Otherwise, you will not do anything. Nothing has to be filed along with the return. But it also says that it has to be produced on demand. As of now, till date, no rule has been made under this section 139C. 139D. 139D says filing of return in electronic form. And that's how the form is notified. And it says filing of return in electronic form, and there will be a rule which will be prescribed where they say class or classes of person who shall be required to furnish the return in electronic form. I have taken verbatim from this section. The form and the manner in which the return in the electronic form, the return, the very important is the return in electronic form may be furnished. Documents, statements, receipts, certificates, audit reports which may not be furnished along with the return of income but shall be produced before the assessing officer on demand. So if someone doesn't file an audit report, he can still file it whenever the assessing officer demands for it. Possible. The computer resources or the electronic record to which the return is electronic form may be transmitted. So they are also talking about in what format they can do it, and this is how the rule 12 has come into picture. This is how the rule 12 has come into picture, stating that yes, now the return has to be filed online. The return prescribed are online, and they can prescribe the manner and the form. Both they can do. So the manner is filing online, or even we can say the verification of your return, like your other OTP verification or bank account verification or sending it through. All that is the manner in which the return in electronic form may be furnished. Now coming to rule 12. So we have to move quickly to rule 12. And rule 12, if you read, I don't know how many of you would have read rule 12, and I am not able to ask you the question also. How many of you have read rule 12? Majority of us wouldn't have read rule 12. Straight away we go to the form and start filing the return. If you read form rule 12 prescribes return for section 139(1), 142(1), 148, 153A, but does not prescribe 153C. However, when you go and see the return per se, in the return there will be a drop-down box, or even in the notified return form, it says 153C. So 153C is covered. 153C is covered, but not by the rule. So someone says, I have not filed the return. I could not file the return because it is not prescribed return at all. No return has been prescribed under 153C. Then he may have a way out when he goes to the court, because rule form is below the rule is below the section is below the act section 5. That is the major section which is there. So majority of us don't even look into this, and that's how it goes on. So for the current year, assessment year 2021, the first notification for the record purpose, for the first time ever, it came as notification number 1/2020. It came in January itself, the first notification of 2020. And it was 8 pages where they have notified ITR 1 and ITR 4. As we go forward, we will know why they have done it in January itself. Then came a notification number 31, 2020, which is dated 28th May 2020, and it is running into 212 pages. The first one was only 8 pages, ITR 1 and ITR 4, that's all. Now it is 212 pages long material to read. And then it has an appendix. So notification 31, it says the appendix 2 to the rule. That is, what is appendix 2? Appendix 2 is the list of forms, reports, statements, etc. ITR form number 1 to 7 and ITR V has been replaced for the assessment year. All along what they used to do is they only used to change the assessment year. This time they have said they were going to change the form itself. The entire form was there. And if you read the notification number 31, it says that it will come into effect as notified in the official gazette. And the official gazette, it was notified on 3rd June 2020. And there is a new addition in this particular ITR e-filing that is called e-filing acknowledgement. As we go forward, we will understand what is this ITR e-filing acknowledgement. This is the gap between your return and the acknowledgement, the ITRV, what we call technically what you used to have that called ITRV. In between the ITRV and the return form which you upload, there is an in-between item called ITR e-filing acknowledgement. As we go forward, we'll understand why this ITRV acknowledgement. So this is what is Rule 12. Now Rule 12, if you go into it, Rule 12 says the return of income shall be furnished in the following manner. 1. Electronically under digital signature, and for certain cases it is compulsory, or transmitting the data in the return under electronic form under electronic verification code. There are 2 electronic verification code. One is the Aadhaar code, the other is the banking channel. And then the last method is transmitting the data in the electronically and thereafter submitting the verification of the return in ITRV. Read the word ITRV. Verification of the return in form ITRV. Actually, it is not ITRV. If you go back, it is the ITR e-filing acknowledgement. And once you file the ITR e-filing acknowledgement, ITRV is automatic. So now you will not get ITRV directly. So this is what about Rule 12. And Rule 12, there is a proviso. If you have gone through the Rule 12 as notified, there is a proviso because Rule 12 is specific to Section 139D and not to 139C. It is very specific only to returns. And Rule 12 also starts with the word returns. But in that they have put a proviso, provided where an assessee is required to furnish a report of audit, they shall furnish same electronically. It is beyond the power bestowed upon under Section 139D. 139C only says you need not file. So they should have given a rule under 139C saying that the return should be, audit report should be filed electronically. Now all the audit reports have to be filed electronically. That is what they are saying it. However, this is beyond the power bestowed upon Section 139D to frame a rule for the CBDT to go ahead. Before we venture into this, let me complete the information which is relating to the new addition ITR e-filing acknowledgement. The ITR e-filing acknowledgement, see, whenever you're going to now upload a return, and if you don't have a Aadhaar OTP available to you, in that scenario, you are going to send you were previously sending the ITRV by post to the department. Now it is not so. What you are going to do is, there will be a e-filing acknowledgement in between. So once you upload the return, you will get a small e-filing acknowledgement. That acknowledgement, you have to get it signed by the assessee and then send it to the CPC. After they receive the acknowledgement, thereafter they will issue the ITRV. See, earlier what happened, we used to send ITRV and we used to get an acknowledgement receipt. Once the ITRV reaches the department, you have a receipt called acknowledgement. Now what happened is, many of the chartered accountants or assessees, as the case may be, misuse the gap which is available in between this. There was a small gap in between this. What people used to do is, they used to upload the return, and after uploading the return, they will not verify with the Aadhaar OTP, nor they will send the ITRV, signed ITRV to the department. Now they had a provision which said that within 120 days, if the ITRV doesn't reach us, then the return becomes invalid, right? So what happens is, I will file, for example, I get a reopening notice. So what I do is I upload the return. I upload the return and I don't send the ITRV. Now what will happen to the return? CPC independently will say this is invalid return. However, they used to transfer the return to the AO also. Or we would have filed a letter to the AO, see, I have filed the return, this is the ITRV, without giving the acknowledgement. The ITO also never asked for the acknowledgement. So the returns were processed and the assessment order were passed, and the matter went to the higher judicial forums, and the judicial forum said any assessment done on an invalid return is null and void. So this was the escape route for people to come out of this problem. Now what they have done is they have brought in a concept called ITR e-filing acknowledgement. So now onwards, you will not get an acknowledgement for filing a return unless and until you send the ITR e-filing acknowledgement. And once you file the e-filing acknowledgement, ITR you will be able to generate. No more receipt, the concept of receipt which you had earlier saying acknowledgement, that will not be there. Now coming to the ITRs. So introducing to the ITRs, the ITR forms have been notified on 29th May 2020 and gazetted on 3rd June 2020. But on 3rd, it has come on the website on 3rd June. However, they have retrospectively given effect to 29th May 2020. Presently, there are 3 ITRs which are available: ITR 1, ITR 2, and ITR 4, and both in Java and Excel utility. This is not updated. And if you have seen that ITR 2 Java utility came later, Excel utility came earlier. And ITR 2 and ITR 4 have already got updated once. So there's a small gap within, we are in still July. The ITR forms were notified in July, and still already the ITRs have been updated. And they are also talking about, see, please read the instruction. If you see, just see the slide here, it says read the instruction. But there is no instruction at all. There is no instruction at all. No instructions are available as far as any of the ITR is concerned, not only on this website, it is also not there on the other website. If you see the other website, what is the other website? This is e-filing website where you have only the e-filing forms. The other website is incometaxindia.gov.in where you go and see the income tax return forms. There also, you will not see any of the instructions which are available. The only instruction which comes is when you open the utility. This is the instruction which comes out, saying that don't use Control-Alt-C and all that, Control copy paste, don't do it. Rate labels are there. That's the only instruction which is available. No other instructions are available as on date. Now, why the ITR? I was talking about, saying that for the first time ever, they have done it in June. There are 2 judgments. One is Delhi High Court, the other is Punjab and Haryana High Court, where they said that various courts have given. These 2 courts went further up and said that you should come with the return forms well within the time, that is before 1st April 2000 of the 1st April of the subsequent year itself, the form should be available. Now what, these judgments are also very old judgments, 2015. Excuse me. These are all 2015 judgments when the forms are not notified, and then there was large hue and cry and people were filing petition after petition. No one was listening to in the North Block, and then the matter traveled to the courts. It traveled in Gujarat, it traveled in Bombay, it traveled in Delhi, it traveled in Punjab and Haryana. Delhi and Punjab and Haryana High Courts both said that there seems to be no justification for the delay beyond the assessment year in prescribing said form, because all the sections, whatever is the possible, is already notified and everything is available with you. Then what is the delay in giving the forms? And then they came out with an instruction saying that at least ensure that the forms which are to be prescribed for the audit report and for filing IT are available on the 1st April of the subsequent year. However, since 2015, all the notification either came on 31st March or came on 1st or 2nd April. Never came well before. What do you mean by well before is before the period starts, not just on 31st or 2nd. So they were all taking, but no one was taking it to the contempt of court. Nothing was happening. This year, they came out on 1st April itself. And then we have all kind of issues now. Because 1st April, nothing could be done. After that, everything went into haywire and we are fighting the COVID now. So they said that both tax audit report as well as all the forms should be available well in advance. Now, this could be a hint for you to say that the dates are going to be extended further. The dates are going to be further extended because the forms are not yet ready and there are other issues which are there. For example, your Form 3CD, utility is yet to be approved by them. And they have also said that they should come and with a recording of reasons why they are doing it, why there is a delay. They are not putting it anywhere. In the notification, they are supposed to give why there is a delay in the notification of the return forms. Now let us get into the return form per se. So I'm just going to brief you about the ITR forms which are there. ITR 1, individuals. Only individuals can use ITR 1. ITR 2 and 3 can be used by individuals and HUFs. ITR 4 can be used only for presumptive incomes. ITR 5, other than individual HUF and companies, that is the partnership form, AOP, BOI, trust, or the private educational trust, and all that will come under that. ITR 6, companies, other than companies who are claiming exemption under Section 11. And ITR 7, all exempt claiming entities, whether it is 1023C or 11, whatever it is, all comes under ITR 7. Now the due dates, as of now, these are the due dates. Any assessee who are liable for audit, the income tax return form due date is extended to 30th November. Audit report is extended to 31st October 2020. Please note, this is the amended section. Audit report has to be submitted 1 month prior to the due date of filing the return. So now onwards, only the assessee have to say that the date has to be extended. You cannot say the date has to be extended because all along, only the chartered accountants are crying saying that there's no time limit available. Now they have curtailed it. They have bifurcated between you and the assessee. Now only assessee has to cry saying that I am not able to produce all the documents because of this problem. So please extend. Anyone not liable to audit, for example, salaried employees or income from other sources only, that is also 30th November 2020. And the bad luck is even for transfer pricing, they have not extended. Transfer pricing cases also the date stands at 30th November 2020. No further extension is there through the COVID scenario. Chairman sir, let me know if I'm a bit fast, whether you want me to go a bit slow.
No, sir, you're perfect. You can go ahead, sir. No issues.
Okay. So let us get into the importance of filing the correct ITR. Though the ITR, if you have filed a wrong ITR form, for example, you have commission and you have put the commission income from other sources and filed the return. A wrong ITR will not nullify your return, but it will create a lot of issues for other cases. That will not be an issue. Say, for example, if you have done a wrong ITR form, you have selected a wrong ITR form. Instead of selecting ITR 3, you have selected ITR 1 and then you have filed the return, putting in the wrong column. That will not nullify the return, but it can become a defective return. Now, what is a defective return? Defective return is a return where you have not filled up your columns correctly. That is only a defective return. Because defective return section 139(9) has also been amended. Earlier, if you have not paid the challan, that is also defective. Now, not paying the challan and filing the return is not defective at all. Just let me go to 139(9). And that also when the assessing officer considers the return of the furnished is defective, he may intimate the defect. So it is defect based on the return. For example, you have 26 AS. In 26 AS, there is an income which is there. And this can be a defective. But they are not doing it because they have something called 143(1)(a). 143(1)(a), now they have a provision where they say that they can propose adjustment to the return file. So those adjustment can be sent to you in electronic mode or in writing. That is a paper format. And the time allowed is maximum 30 days. Normally they allow, maximum 30 days is the time allowed for you to either accept the change, proposed adjustment, or leave it as it is. If you leave it as it is, don't respond at all, then the adjustment may be final. So now if it is final, then what option you have? You have either 154 or you have to go for appeal. So rectification or appeal. So rectification or appeal only increases your workload with or without further fees. Appeal you may, but 154 I don't know whether you will be able to charge. And then there's a scrutiny under section 143(2), because what you have given and what is the difference. Now they have also started something new also, which is called online compliance, which has started off late, where they are saying that they have come across some transactions, whether you agree to the transaction, and there's an online response system which is available. So maybe they are going to do that, but even after you give a response, you're saying that the transaction is correct. But if they feel that the difference between the transaction which you have reported, take for example, a person who is doing finance business, a person who is doing money lending business, in his bank account, he would have deposited say 1 crore or more than 50 lakhs. Then the information will flow saying that more than 50 lakhs has been deposited. Now, when you're going to log in, you're going to say, yes, this transaction is correct. However, your income will not match with your amount deposited. Your income may be around 5 lakhs, but you would have deposited 50 lakhs because that is the collections which have come. Under that scenario, 143(2) may come, or if they miss out, they may come out 148 notice. Then you have the false statement in any verification. If you are given something wrong in the return form, section 127. Section 277 says that if you have given any false statement in any verification, kindly note in the return form, you give a verification at the fag end. Previously, the verification was in the middle. Now they have moved it to the fag end, because otherwise I will always say that I am verifying only what is given in the first 2 pages. I am not verifying, I am not giving any statement for the other papers which are there. So what they have now done is they have moved the verification column to the fag end of the return. So that is the end of the return. You say verification. That means every column, every information which you are given is correct. If it is not correct, where the tax to be sought to be evaded is 25 lakhs and above, there is rigorous imprisonment, not less than 6 months, up to 7 years, and with fine. And under section, for other cases, it is 3 months to 2 years and fine. However, section 278 is abatement of false return. Tomorrow, if they say that you have abated, because our IP address also goes when we file the return. Our IP address also will go along with the return form saying that this was uploaded by you. So if it is uploaded by you, you can also be considered to be abating a false return. If I am abating a false return knowingly and with intent to evade tax, then prosecution will lie with us. Now, section 279A, this is the luckiest part, which says that these offences are non-cognizable. That means it has to be taken to the magistrate court. Magistrate court alone can do the prosecution. The AO cannot do it. Very, very dangerous provisions, but we should be aware of. Now, let us get into the applicability and key changes in the return forms for assessment year 2021. This is what I said, ITRV, they are calling it. This is the ITRV which will come after you submit the ITR acknowledgement. This ITR acknowledgement has to go. Kindly see the verification. This verification is repeated in the return also. If you have just noted down, or if you have looked into it, the entire format has got changed. The entire format has got changed. The name is there, address has gone out, your phone number, everything has gone out. Only PAN number, and PAN number is now interchangeable with Aadhaar number. Which type of form you are going to file, under which section you have filed, what is the e-filing acknowledgement number. That e-filing acknowledgement number has to be generated, will be generated, and then it says, if you read the bottom part, and here it says, information given in the return which are submitted by me by the acknowledgement number is correct and complete. Correct and complete. Very, very, very wide terms. And is in accordance with. So if some assessees are saying that I will file myself, then he should know the entire provisions of Income Tax Act. And I further declare that I am making this return in my capacity as, if you are individual, it will come as individual. If it's a Karta, it will come as Karta. This is a common form. And I am also competent to make this return form and verify it. I am holding the permanent account number, so and so. All these are picked up automatically from your PAN database here itself. And then it says, what is the date of submission? And this is what I was talking about. Source IP address. Your IP address will be captured here. And then if you see at the bottom, the earlier version still continues. That you can send it by ordinary post or speed post. And now it says that shall not be received in any office of the Income Tax Department or any other manner. Any other manner means instead of ordinary post or speed post, if you do courier, that also will not be accepted. And on successful e-filing verification, the return filing acknowledgement can be downloaded from e-filing portal as proof of completion of process. Earlier ITRV had all the information. What is your income? All that was there. Now everything has gone out. Everything has gone out. Nothing is there. Only after this is sent to the department, you can get the acknowledgement, which is, just see these three items which are added, very, very relevant. And then this is your ITRV per se, or in other words, income tax return acknowledgement. This income tax return acknowledgement again has gone for a sea change. And if you have seen this, address is coming here, not in that form, but address is coming here. And then it says something like this. Just see these two things. Earlier, if you are remembering your acknowledgement ITRV, you had gross total income, then you had chapter 68 deduction, then you had total income, then you had agricultural income, exempt income, losses carry forward, so on and so forth. And then you have tax paid also, breakup of advance tax, self-assessment tax, and other taxes, TCS, and all that was there. All that has gone. What they have done is now income tax return acknowledgement is a common acknowledgement for your return form, for your dividend distribution tax form, for your the other forms which are there, accrued income form, which is 115, where you have the pass by return, all that one single form. And if you see at the bottom, do not send this acknowledgement to Bangalore. Just see, and it will show you all these things. It will show you whether it was received by them or it was electronically verified. I don't know why they have put it here, because there is no signature. Why will you send without a signature? But they have put it because you may get confused with the older version where you had the habit of sending this form to the department. Now this form is changed totally, and the loophole which I was talking initially of not sending the ITRV and getting an acknowledgement and then trying to say that yes, I have uploaded the return, then making it as invalid return, all that has gone. Now 120 days will apply only for that acknowledgement, the previous acknowledgement which we had. This one is the verification. If this is not sent within 120 days, your return has never been filed. That is what will be considered as never been filed at all. Now this is your ITR. This is the new change which has come. If you see the ITR, in all the ITRs this is there. All the ITRs is there. If you see here, they are talking about 153C. And they are also talking about 119.2B. 119.2B is understandable because 119.2B is a condonation petition filed before the commissioner for claiming a refund. Only in case of a refund, you can make a claim. And if the amount is substantial, then you have to make a claim before the CBDT. So that is what is there here. And if you see here also, you can file a return in response to 139. If there is a defect, now you are supposed to file a return. Earlier, whenever there was a defective one, they used to tell that you generate an XML and attach the XML. Now it will not be that. It will be saying generate a return and again attach the return so that your rectification or the error in the return is nullified. And that's the reason why it is asking you the date of filing original return and whether it is in the note in response to any of the notifications. Verification. I have picked up this verification specifically because in ITR 4 alone, only in ITR 4, this part is there. I'm talking about the notified forms. The notified forms in the notification number 31, all the returns will not have this part. Only ITR 4 has this part. However, all the forms which have come online right now has this part also. Now, if you see this, this has gone to the fag end. This is the last part. Now, this is countersigned by the TRP. So, you sign it, the countersign happens. So, if you're going to digitally sign it, it is going to sign it here. Now, I don't know whether when I am going to transmit the return, which is not digitally signed, how will I sign here? I'm not aware of this now. I don't have an answer for this because they have envisaged something which is to be signed in the return. If I'm going to digitally sign it, yes, the signature may be picked up here also. However, I don't know how they are going to do it. And this is the ITR verification for form number 3. And if you see here that TRP is not there, that means what? That means all the return forms cannot be filed by a TRP now. TRP will be able to file only few returns, not all the returns. ITR 1, 2 and 4 only. All other forms, the TRP cannot file the returns. And then if you see this is the additional thing which is there. I further declare that critical assumptions specified in the agreement. This is for transfer pricing, but it have been picked up on all the returns. So you are going to sign this even though it is not applicable to you. So this is what is the ITR. I think this has got repeated. Okay, now the criteria, I have put it as a table. I will try to share the PowerPoint so that you will have all, and this is put into one table saying whom to applicable, how and what income can be included and what income cannot be included. And this is just a table. So if you can have just a bird's eye view of all the return forms, who can use it, how it can be used. Now ITR 1. ITR 1 is the simplest form called Sahaj. They have given the name Sahaj. It is applicable only to ordinary resident individuals, not an ordinary resident, ordinary but not ordinary also is not included. Purely ordinary resident individual can only use ITR 1, and the income which the particular individual should have is salary income or a pension income, income from house property, and the associate should own not more than one house property, and it should not have any carry forward losses or losses to be carry forward or losses to be adjusted, except for your income from house property loss which is there. That alone you can use it. Otherwise, you cannot use this form. I don't know why this is restricting to assessee owns not more than one house, whereas they have amended the section. So as we go forward, we'll learn about that also. And the income should not, and other sources should also not have lottery income or racehorses income, or should not have loss under other sources. Now there are 13 conditions to be fulfilled. So that these 13 conditions should be fulfilled, or if you are having any of the condition applicable to you, you are excluded from using ITR 1. The first one, which I have picked up at the earliest because it is there the fag end, out of the 13, this is somewhere in 10th, I have picked up on the top. The income should not exceed 50 lakhs. And the person, the assessee should not have any assets or interest in a financial asset outside India. So I don't know how we are going to say whether you have an interest in a financial asset or not. For example, I am an individual. My father is staying outside India and he has a property outside India. Now whether I have an interest in that financial asset? Yes, I have. Whether it is vested in me? No, it is not vested till my father is there. So I may take a view saying that it is not the interest in financial assets. So these kind of questions have to be answered before you use the form. if you are a signing authority, if the assessee is a signing authority in any account outside India, then he is not authorized to use this particular form. He has any other source of income outside India, then also it cannot be used. Anyhow, this cannot be used because resident, not ordinary resident, cannot use this. So automatically it's out. Income apportioned under section 5A. This is a special provision which is based on the Portuguese civil code. Maybe this apply only to Goa, and there also they cannot use this. And if there is any claim under section 57, this is very interesting. I have interest received, I have interest paid. I have taken loan, I have given loan, and I have net interest received. Now, if I am going to put as a net interest received, then I may be able to use it, but that will be a false return because you are not forecasting what is the expenditure you are claiming it. You are claiming interest paid against the interest received. 57 subclause 3, you can make a claim if it is wholly and exclusively earned, incurred to earn the income, there is a claim available. So they have said any claim under section 57, you cannot use this. You can use only under standard deduction for pension. That alone you can use it. Otherwise, you cannot use it. That is under section 57 subclause 2. If you are a director in any company, maybe it's a section 8 company or any other company, you can be a director in a foreign company, still you will not be able to use this return form. If you are holding any shares in any unlisted equity company at any time during the year, you cannot use this. So unlisted equity shares of any company at any point of time, you will not be able to use this particular return form. And if the income is to be clubbed and TDS has been deducted, then that also you cannot use this form. Any claim under section 90, 90A, that is your transfer pricing or your international taxation, whether you have a claim, because anyhow they cannot use it. I don't know why they put it here. And if the agricultural income is more than 5,000, you cannot use ITR 1. You can also not use ITR 1 if you are having dividend income more than 10 lakhs, because more than 10 lakh dividend income is taxable at the rate of 10%, you cannot. And if you have income under section 68, 69, 69C, and you are paying taxes under section 115 BBE, then also you cannot use this return form Sahaj. Now when you open it, this is what is the message which comes out, ITR 1. When you open it, this is the error message. They'll say that if you do this, there will be error. So don't use this. ITR 1, and this is added in almost all the returns. This is the additional checkpoint which has come. Are you filing the return of income under the 7th proviso to section 139(1), but otherwise not required to furnish the return of income? If yes, so this will be used by people who are covered by the 7th proviso, which was inserted with effect from 1st April 2020, applicable for the financial year. And these are the three. These are the three which is there. These are the three which they are talking about. These are the three which if you are having. However, this will apply only if you don't have a taxable income. You are not required to file the return, but you are furnishing the return because of these transactions. Then you have to give. You have to say, what is the amount? In this, if yes, amount please. We have to give if you have deposited an amount or amounts aggregating excess of 1 crore in any more current accounts. Incurred expenditure of more than 2 lakhs for foreign travel. Incurred expenditure of 1 lakh on consumption of electricity. You have incurred. That's the important word. Not that you have a commercial complex, and that commercial complex you have let it out to 3 people. 3 people jointly pay the electricity bill, and then they are paying directly. Then it is not covered. But if you are paying, then it is covered. If you have incurred expenditure or aggregate amount of exceeding 1 lakh on consumption of electricity during the year, then you have to fill up this particular column. Very surprising. Very surprising. They have not included the other 6 provisos. Totally, there are 7 provisos under section 139(1). And there are 6 provisos other than this proviso which we have discussed. And there is 1 proviso which is not covering. That is the that is only 1 proviso which will not be covered at all. So you have the 6th proviso which requires you to give. Even if the income is below the exemption limit, you have to file the return. For example, you have that you are in occupation of immovable property exceeding a square feet area and all that, owning a motor vehicle, all that was there. That those provisions are also there, or you are holding beneficial interest outside India. All the provisions are there, but these have not been added. Only the latest addition which is there, that alone has been added, and they are saying that this is applicable and you have to give the information. This is another key change in the details of investment. They are asking you what is the deduction of amount claimed during financial year 1920, but this has been paid after, because if you remember during the COVID, they have extended the date. They've extended the date, and this date has now been extended to 31st July. But this, I think they will amend it. They may amend any point of time. Now they are saying that you say what is your claim you are making, out of which how much has been paid in the earlier year. This is again very relevant, because you may try to claim twice. Next year also by mistake you may claim. So based on this, they may ask you a question. Still you want to make a claim next year. Next year's return, you have to wait and see. Let us go to now ITR 2. ITR 2 can be used by individuals and HUFs. Now HUFs are being added here, but does not include income from profit and gain from business. And individuals not eligible to use ITR 1 can use ITR 2. So these are the two people who can use ITR 2. Key changes in ITR 2. Last year, they were asking you whether you are a government employee, public sector undertaking, pensioners, others, not applicable. Now they are asking you whether they are central government employee or state government employee or public sector. This is bifurcated between the government, state and central. I don't know what is the purpose, but they have bifurcated. One more change which has come in almost all the forms is your 80D. 80D now they are asking you to give the breakup itself. They are asking you to give a breakup saying that what is the breakup of the 80, whether it is for self and family, whether it is self alone, whether it is for parents, senior citizen, all the information now they are getting captured. And then they are further asking you to give the breakup. How much is for the self, how much is this insurance, and all that they are asking you. And because we are trying to keen in the Excel utility, and then this is what it is getting asking you whether it is a preventive health care. I don't know why this is asked for. This has gone in depth. ATC they have not gone in depth, but here they have gone in depth and asking you entire information. So entire information will be available with them for them to verify whenever they want. ITR 3. ITR 3 can be used by individuals and HUFs only having income from profit and gain from business. Those who can file ITR 1 or ITR 2 or ITR 3 can also file this only if they have business income, and also the partners in partnership form. Now this again in ITR 2 and 3, this is what they are asking for. There is an additional information asked for. What is that additional information? They are asking for the assessee needs to disclose about directorship in companies of holding unlisted equity shares, not listed, unlisted equity shares. One new disclosure column has been added, and that is the type of company. And then they are asking you whether these are domestic company or a foreign company. This is surprising. In ITR 4, this is not called for. So if I have presumptive income and I am a director, I need not give the information. If I don't have a presumptive income and I am filing the ITR 1, 2, 3, then I have to give this information. This is the miss out which has happened. ITR 4. ITR 4 is for your SUGAM, for the presumptive taxation. It can be used by the individual or HUF who are ordinary resident. If they are not ordinary resident, then this cannot be used. And all partnership firms, including LLP, which are resident, they alone can use it for all the income which are earned through and covered under section 44AD, 44ADA, and 44AE. 44AD is a presumptive business, eligible businesses, where you have that 6%, 8% criteria. 44ADA for professionals, 50% criteria. 44AE, condition 10 vehicles, and per vehicle you have to do. That also is covered under this ITR 4. all the conditions which are applicable for ITR 1 are equally applicable. That means 13 conditions which are there are equally applicable here. And also the additional condition is owns more than one house property. If you are owning more than one house property, then also you cannot use this ITR Sugam. This is very, very funny because section 23(4) was amended and where they replaced 1 with 2. So now an assessee can claim 2 house properties as self-occupied and not declare any income on these 2 properties. But if I have 2 properties, I am not eligible to use ITR 4 Sugam. ITR 5. ITR 5 form can be used other than individuals, HUF, company, trust or companies claiming exemptions. So this is, in other words, it is for your partnership firm or your AOP, BOI. All those will be covered under ITR 5. ITR 6. ITR 6 can be claimed only by people who are claiming exemption under section 11, 13A, all the subsection under section 139 4C. There are multiple there, 1023C, all will be covered. There are around 10 sections under section 10 where they have the claims available and were covered under section 139 4C. They cannot use this. And also the 35(1)(2) and 35(1)(3). They also cannot use this particular ITR 6. Changes in ITR 6. There are 2 new columns added. Whether the assessee is going to opt for the new provisions, the domestic company which are eligible now, there will be a drop-down box available. As of now, no utility is available, so I am not able to show you that. Now they are going to say that if you are going to opt for your new provisions, that is the reduced rate of taxes, 15%, 22%, all that. In that scenario, you have to click here. And then they are also asking whether your gross receipt or gross turnover in 2017-18 was exceeding 400 crores. These informations are captured in this form. So this is what I was talking about. Manufacturing company, the rate of tax will be 25%. Any other company, it will be 22%. And manufacturing company, it will be 15%. So if you want to opt for your new provisions like this, then you have to select in that particular column, and then the effective rates will be as stated here under. And then they have also included the insurance business here, and then they have asked for this kind of information. What is the net profit from the business referred to 115B? These are covered. Additions in accordance with 30 to 43B. All these informations are there. And then they have removed point number 2C. Accumulated balance of recognized provident fund taxable under section 111. This has been removed from this return form. Now we are getting into the common changes in ITR 3 and 6. That is the ITRs which are going to be used for tax audit purposes. Are you liable to maintain books of account under 44AA? This is the new additions which are there. Whether the assessee is declaring income only under section 44AE, 44B, 44BB, so on and so forth. Now this is the most important one. This is the reason why I picked up this particular area, because there's a lot of confusion going around whether the tax audit limit increased up to 5 crores is applicable for assessment year 2021 or it is applicable from assessment year 21-22. Let me make it very clear. This is applicable from assessment year 2021. If your income, if your gross receipt is more than 1 crore and less than 5 crore, then you can opt for presumptive taxation, provided you fulfill the condition of 95% of all the payments and receipts. All that conditions if you fulfill, you can opt for going out of tax audit and going for presumptive taxation, possible, provided you read this here. It makes it amply clear. In section 44AB, when they inserted that proviso was inserted without giving to any specific assessment year. And when there is no specific assessment year given for any insertion of a section, then it applies from the first day of the financial year after the budget is presented. So that is, this was done in the Finance Act 2020, and it has become applicable from 1/4/2020. So this is applicable from assessment year 2021. Whether you can go and say that yes, I can opt for 44AB when my turnover is above 1 crore. So you have now in tax audit 3 slabs up to 1 crore, 1 to 2 crores, 1 to 5 crores. So and above 5 crores is also there. So this is how we have to look into it. Now the additional disclosure is also required under point number 11. They have added one more column, disallowable under 43B, added one more column, whether any interest on any loan borrowing from a deposit taking NBFC or systematically important non-deposit taking NBFC, then you have to disallow under 43B. And then we have to get into 43B whether they have paid it before the due date of filing return. If they have paid before the due date of filing return, then that disallowance will not come. Then they have also added 17. Whether they say assessee excising the transfer pricing provision. If yes, there's a special schedule. I'll not get deep into it because these are high end and we have to get into deep into it, then it will take more time. Then they have also included new rate option which was added 45%. So there is a column which is done under depreciation on plant and machinery. They have added one more column, 45% slab. Pass-through income. Pass-through income, whenever there is a pass-through income capital gains, where the capital gains are literally paid by the end investor, there's a trust, the trust takes and that passes on to that has to be filled up. And now they have changed this pass-through income in the nature of long-term capital gain, chargeable at the rate of 10% under 12A. This has been added specifically this year. Though it was there, it is there in the first column. Again, it has been added. 112A, that is there on the first A1, A2 again they have added. We have to look into it why they have added this. And then when you go into pass-through, now they have started asking you more information. Investment entity covered by 115 UA or UB, nature or name of the trust, and then current year income, last year income, share of current year loss distributed by investment fund. If there is a loss, that also has to be given, and you have to give the information along with the TDS amount, if any. And they have started specifically section wise also. Section 112A, section other than 112A, 111A, and whether dividend has been distributed, 115O. That also information is asked for. Now, bifurcation of losses, carry forward losses, they have again put it into house property loss, total house property loss. So they are now asking you property wise losses and other losses also. And if there is insurance company loss, that is separately. Now there is a pass-through income, normal, total. How much capital gains loss you have, how much is normal, how much is pass-through income. And again here also they are asking you the same information. And then they are asking you the information relating to loss distributed among the unit holder. So how much loss you have distributed, that also they are asking you. And then they are asking you the adjustment of the above losses in your business forward losses. And then these are deep information which they are asking. More and more information are getting culled out, and the assessees have to give more and more information. Now they have common changes. Other than this, along with PAN, Aadhaar number can also be used interchangeably. That also they are putting it now. And then they are saying details of income from outside India and tax relief available only in case of resident. That information also they are asking for. This is for the secondary adjustment 92CA. These are the adjustments which are for the transfer pricing. If there is any secondary adjustment, how is the adjustment done? What is the income tax payable thereon? All that information they are asking for. Again, 54 capital gains. They are asking for that, very similar to what they have asked for ATC. How much is remitted or deposited during the COVID period, 1/4/2020 to 36/2020, now which has been extended to 31st July 2020. So all this is getting captured. They are asking all the informations. Then they are asking about the eligible deductions. How much deductions in which year you are doing it, date of approval, all these have previously they were nothing. You were just asking you whether you have a claim, whether there's an undertaking, how much is the claim. Now they are asking for all the information so that they can do a data mining themselves. Date of letter approval, they can get the information from SEZ, cross match it, finish it off. So all these informations are getting captured now. So this application 54E is no more applicable. So they have removed it. And now they are also asking you about this particular verification, which we have already discussed. Any other income chargeable at special rate, following points have been inserted. What are that? Income from royalty or technical fees chargeable under section 115A, 1B, BA or 1BB, all they have now put a separate column. Income received in respect of units purchased in foreign currency by an offshore fund, separate column. Tax on dividend received by an Indian company from a specified foreign company, 115 BBD, again they have asked separately. Because the rate of taxes have gone changed, so they have changed everything and now they have put everything separately. Income from royalty where agreement entered between 1961 to 76, income from fees, all that also they are asking because there was no specific column and people are filling it up wherever they feel like. And then there is a income chargeable special rate. Again, many things have been added. Whatever is yellowish or fresh added this year. What is the rate? How much it will calculate the tax automatically. Pass through income, how much is the capital gains you have received? All that you have to put it here. Income received in respect of unit purchased in foreign currency. This is the drop down box which they are talking about. This all we have discussed. That is, CBDT has now notified ITRB and acknowledgement form separately for assessment year 2021. This means ITRB is no longer the final acknowledgement form of return of income. So once you send the ITRB, you will get an acknowledgement, ITR e-filing acknowledgement. Only on ETR e-filing acknowledgement, your process is complete. Till that time, your process is not complete, and the bankers or the financial institution or wherever you want to give this form, that will not be accepted as a filing of return. In the case of trust, that is ITR 7, they have included one more thing. This was amended in 2020, where they brought in saying that you have to go for re-registration under the new provision. Now they are making it mandatory. I don't know how they are going to come with the utility. Now they are making it mandatory if required to be registered. If I am required to be registered, so if I have a registered number, this becomes mandatory. And these forms have not yet come. And these dates have been extended now. I don't know how it is going to, they are going to say that they will not be compulsory field or so. I don't know. Now under which section you are going to make an application, date on which the application has been approved in the new provision. If it is approved, you have to give that also. And under which section you are done. Maybe it is 11 or 13 or that is political party 13A, or it can be on section 1023C, so on and so forth. Go to chairman. We'll have interaction first and then go to the next one.
Any doubts, please send the chat box, sir. Arun, sir,
Yeah.
any doubts is coming?
Yeah, as of now, there is no doubt. So probably else, because there may be some, say the doubts may be on if they are feeling uncomfortable to type, probably we can unmute all. So, and then can we do it, sir? If
Yeah, no
is it fine?
No problem.
Yeah, okay, fine. So I'm just unmuting all so that if suppose if you have any doubt, you can please ask a query or. Sir, this is the problem. So now I have unmuted all.
இது வந்து அதுல கேக்குது கேட்கறதுனால என்ன பில்லுன்னு போடுறதுக்கு போட்டாங்க சீரியல் நம்பர் போட்டுட்டேன்.
We have unmuted all. Suppose if anyone has any query, they can ask the speaker.
How many of you have tried to file a return?
Sorry, sir.
Any of you have tried to file a return? ITR 1, ITR 2, and ITR 4. 3 are available right now.
ITR 1, ITR 4 is filing, sir. ITR 2 is not filed. It is a Java utility is not available, I think, sir.
Available.
Events,
It is available.
it's available. Okay.
Yeah. From 10th July it was available. And it has been already amended also once.
Okay.
கொஞ்சம் வெயிட் பண்ணு.
So, but one small thing, like in the ITR 3, whether a private company also should be included, right? It is private limited companies also. It is applicable for both.
Unlisted means all are covered.
All the covered.
All, even foreign company is covered.
Sorry, sir?
Even foreign company is covered.
Understood.
Anything which is not listed.
Okay. Right.
In case of managing partners, having income from salary and agriculture income is there. Which one will file, sir?
Salary and
The salary plus share of profit, interest on capital is coming, plus agriculture income is there. Which
I
one?
think ITR 3.
83. Okay. 83 is we will fill the balance sheet items, P&L items, mandatory.
No. There they are asking you one question, no? Whether you are maintaining books of accounts or not. If you say, no, I am not maintaining, then you cannot.
Okay.
See, we have to be very careful in filing the return this year onwards because the 143(1)(a), 143(1)(a), if you have 26 AS and there is a TDS income which is available, though it is not offered in the current year, it may be offered in subsequent year. Take for example, chartered accountant. Chartered accountant may follow cash system of accounting, right? And the TDS has been deducted on mercantile. The clients have deducted on 31st March and remitted. They have put the assessment year there. So you have to pull in and say that this is carried forward and claimed next year. Otherwise, they will trigger saying that, yes, 26 years, there's something is reflected. You are not offered. So why it should not be added?
That's right.
I'm just triggering certain information because even the trust are going to file the return now. For example, if there are some ATG deduction and the other person is going to generate and say that, yes, ATG has been, these people have donated to me, right? And you don't want to claim ATG. But tomorrow they'll say it's unexplained expenditure.
Correct.
So they should add a column saying that, yes, I have donated, but I don't want to claim. They are not doing that.
Sir, in fact,
The AR return is no more there.
Uh,
The AR return has got removed. Now, whatever information is there in 26 years, you have to reconcile. That is most important. You have to first reconcile. Without reconciling, don't do a filing at all. So, on the date on which you are filing the return, just before you file the return, you download 26 years. Because what happens is, in 26 years, there is corrections possible, right? You would have downloaded on, say, 30th April. On 30th April, there's a transaction which is available. Based on that, you also prepared a statement. And after that, the other person found that that was not relating to you. So he modified the return, filed a revised return. Now that has become negative. So you have offered the income and offered the tax, claimed the tax also. So this will become a false return. So you have to be very careful now onwards saying that, and it is better that for every individual also, you have a format of taking saying declaration. These are the information which I am giving, and based on this only you are filing. Because your IP address goes.
Correct. But how about the SFT then, sir?
SFT is,
that also to be looked into, right?
yeah, that is the reason why they have changed. Now 26 years going to go.
Correct.
Now they are coming with the annual statement.
Annual statement. Correct.
That will contain everything. Now also certain 26 years are having the SFT also.
Okay.
They have tried it with 26As also. Some of the forms are getting captured.
Okay.
I don't know whether this 26As will go for scrap or the earlier version will be available. So it is better that every now and then you download and keep your 26As. One fine morning they'll say it is removed. Because I have come across where after the COVID, I tried to go and see the notices which were issued to me during the assessment proceedings. Now these are not available, vanished.
Okay.
It is always better that you keep the track of your 26As.
Okay.
Someone are saying that they are waiting for the TDS return filing deadline to conclude. Understandable, but you can prepare and keep it. That was my intention. So if you start preparing, you'll know. If you are preparing through the private softwares, they will take care. But if you are preparing by your own, you have to validate and see. And you can prepare and keep it ready. Once 26 AS comes, you verify and then you can start doing it.
So now with respect to the 1 crore, 5 crore limits, so you mean to say that, so suppose if I'm having a turnover, say less than 2 crores, and my receipts are fully 100% towards there is check, there is no cash is involved. So in that case, I can offer 8% tax.
6%.
6%. Yeah. So else, suppose if I'm having a turnover, say if I'm offering an income less than 6%, first point my issue is like whether the tax audit report has to be issued.
Yes. If it is less than 6%, yes.
Okay.
You have an option of getting into that 44 AD. You only have an option of entering it.
Okay.
If you don't enter, then you are audit.
Okay. Okay.
Only in case of less than 1 crore.
Okay.
If it is less than 6%, audit. If it is more than 1 crore, you have to offer 6% if you don't want to do an audit, otherwise audit.
Okay, fine. But I do have a small doubt, sir, because when we read the section 44 AD, actually earlier they specified that whenever an income is offered, say less than the specified limit, there is a specified percentage that tax audit report has to be issued. It was the earlier provision, but from way back from, I think so in 2017 or something, instead of that, they included the subclause one they included. So when they have included the subclause, so still I'm skeptical whether.
Yes, everyone is skeptical saying that yes, tax audit is not applicable, but who will litigate?
That's right. Okay.
The people who are at that income level will not litigate, and the matter has to go up to the court because it's a legal issue.
Okay.
It's not a
right.
factual issue. So tribunal also will say some dodging and then they will send it to High Court.
Okay.
So who will fight till High Court for a particular small case?
Because what
You have to
happened
see
was.
the cost benefit analysis.
That's right. Okay. Because what happened was, in fact, I think so yesterday or day before yesterday, I don't know. One person have posted in the tax guru. Say they have posted the chart or something, which I saw. But the same tax guru in 2017, in fact,
It's only interpretation. No?
Yeah, correct. Yeah, correct. It's absolutely we are the one who are posting.
We are creating the issues.
Correct.
There was one guy from Big Four who tried to discuss with me on this issue.
Okay.
I told him this, whether they will be able to spend that much money to litigate.
Okay.
It's not to advise them at all this way, because litigation will be more costlier.
That's right. Okay. So then apart from that, so if my turnover is say now up to 5 crores, and my each penny is in check, so I will go for
95% of your all payments. The wordings are very, very particular. All payments and receipts. So whether it is a loan payment, expense payment, not relevant. Okay. All payment has to be, and people have started interpreting very, very loosely also. They are saying that all the payment to bank also should be included.
Okay.
No, that is not the intention. The intention is to see to it that transaction with third parties are through banking channels. If that is the way, if you have to take it, then if I move from cash to petty cash, that also will say it's a payment. No, that is not a payment.
Correct. Chairman sir, where are any person, any doubts? இது வரைக்கும் எதுவும் வரலண்ணா, மெசேஜ் எதுவும் வரல.
வந்ததெல்லாம் கிளியர் பண்ணிட்டோம்.
So அடுத்த probably we can go to the
How
next
much time we
subject.
have, sir?
Still
It's already 6:20.
Yeah, still have 40 minutes left.
40 minutes. Okay. And inga வந்து we have to be at we should close our office at 6 Chennai.
Oh, okay.
I'm sitting in office. Okay, let's proceed. Let's get into the because I have not prepared PowerPoint for the next subject. The amendments or changes which have been thought of or which has been proposed through the Budget Finance Act 2020, which are the latest updates. One of the major amendments which they brought in to streamline their own house. To streamline their own house, they have done this. And that is the provision amendment in section 12A and 12AB, insertion new section. They have done it a new provision. And why they have done it is to, they have not put it in the memoranda, but I understand that this is only because they want to clean their house. What do I mean by when they want to clean their house? Many of the trusts are very old trusts and they don't have the records. And the department also doesn't have a record. That's the worst part of it. Say, for example, a trust which was created in 1800s and somewhere got registered under the 1922 Act, and they were continuing to enjoy the exemption, or the trusts which were created in 1960s, 65s, all that trust had the 12A registration. And these trusts are perpetual trusts. Trustees have changed, and over a period of time, they have lost the certificate. Now, what is the option available? They all along were just giving the number and filing the return. Now, what was the option available for them to get a certificate copy? The trust started preparing RTA application, Right to Information Act. They filed an application saying that provide me a copy of the notification. So if I am not a trustee, so they will call me and say, you file an application, so and so trust. I file an application under 10 rupees stamp with a court fee of 10 rupees or a postal stamp of 10 rupees or a DD of 10 rupees and give it to them saying that please provide me with a copy of the registration certificate. Please provide me, I add something more. Please provide me the list of trustees as per the latest record. So they have to give. So these kind of applications started coming in because neither the department nor the assessee had the certificate. So what happened? The commissioner were not able to reply to this RTA. They cannot say that I don't have. They cannot say that you are not registered because they have to have a documentary evidence to say not registered. They will say, I'll be saying that I am being filing return for years together, citing this number. I am giving you the number, but you give me the certificate. So what they thought is to streamline everything or to computerize everything, what we will do is we will ask every trust to re-register themselves. So they said every trust which are carrying on the trust activities should apply for re-registration. Initially, that was the 30th June was the last date, and they have to apply for re-registration. So there are three types. One, they have to apply for re-registration, and then they have to apply for the activities which have been done. There will be a form which will be there, and the same was applicable to 1023C, 35, all the exemption claiming entities, same thing applies. And they also inserted section 12AB. 12AB was for fresh application, and 12A was amended for existing trust. So all applications which were pending on a particular date, that is 30th June, will be automatically migrated to 12AB. It will be deemed to have an application under 12AB. So 12AB application, the trust has to file, need not file a fresh application. Whatever application they have filed, the form 10G or whatever the application they have filed, that application will be moved to any of these applications were online. As of now, it is only online. These applications have to move into the new regime. The older regime, they have to make a fresh application, and the application has to be disposed of within 3 months. Within 3 months by the commissioner, it has to be disposed of. Now, what is the power of the commissioner there? The power of the commissioner is to only see the registration. It was only a window, sir. You make an application, approved. He has to only do approve, approve, approve. That's all. Nothing else to do. So they had two windows, one within 1 month, the other one was within 3 months. So within 1 month, they have to do approval. So the approval has to be provided by the commissioner. He has to only see whether the application trust is there. The number, it's a registered trust. If it is a registered trust, then approve the registration. That's all. 12AB, they said you have to make a fresh application, and that fresh application, again, it's of two types. One application, which is for a people who is yet to start an activity. The second is trusts which have started activity. The trusts which are yet to start an activity, they and the trust which have partly started the activity, they all will be given only a provisional registration. What do you mean by provisional registration? The registration will be applicable only for 3 years. After 3 years, or on or before the 3 years, or completion of the project, they have to make an application to convert that into a permanent trust. Now, the permanent trust or the trust which have earlier registered, both the trusts shall not, after every 5th year, make a fresh application. When they have to make a fresh application? 6 months prior to the date on which the application or the registration is going to expire. When the registration is going to expire, they have to make within 6 months prior to that. They cannot come at the last moment saying that yes. That's the reason why they put a clause saying that within 3 months it has to be processed. So there will be two types of process by the commissioner. One for the existing trust, one for the fresh trust. The new trust has to start the activity and intimate the completion of the project to the commissioner. If they intimate, then the provisional will become permanent. Otherwise, the provisional certificate will lapse after 3 years. Now, the law is not clear. What happens whether I can make a fresh application again? The law is not clear about it. It seems that it is available. You can make a fresh application again. Now, the intention seems to be not only to streamline their house, but also to see that only genuine trust ask for registration. So they have asked for whatever the provision which was there earlier, saying that they can ask for the activities done, they can ask for the accounts. All these provisions have been incorporated in 12AB again. So they can ask for. However, the existing trust, when they come for re-registration, at that time, the commissioner cannot raise questions relating to what is the trust doing, whether it is a genuine trust, whether it is not a genuine trust, nothing he can ask for. He has to do an auto renewal. Once he does an auto renewal, thereafter, he can ask for and take it for scrutiny and take it for other verification in the normal course, but he cannot do it during the registration or re-registration process. This is all about trust. The same applies for ATG deduction. The same applies for 1023C. All are similar provisions which they have amended, and they are now going to have a data bank where all the trust details will be available. So, and you will be also be able to download and see whether the trust is genuinely registered or not. This was because in the last few years, maybe around last 5-7 years, a lot of fraud have happened through this trust. The trusts which are registered under 35, the trusts which are registered under 1023C, they have done all kind of frauds have happened where no genuine, only book entries were there, and they were not even registered per se. But they have claimed that they are registered. All that has happened to curtail that, these new provisions have been brought in. This is all about the amendments which have been brought in relating to trust. Any doubt on this? Before we venture into the TDS, the next subject will be the TDS amendment which they have been brought in.
No doubts received, sir.
Is it?
No doubts received. That pass.
No, nothing is there. The chat box, nothing is pending.
Yes, sir.
Okay, let's proceed with the changes in TDS provisions. TDS provisions, you will be aware that now the dividend is taxable in the hands of the assessee, not in the hands of the company. Company will not pay the dividend distribution tax, and thereafter the assessee will not pay anything. It is exempt. That provision has not now gone. Now the dividend will be taxable in the hands of the assessee. Now, just because of this, they have now amended section 194 and then they have brought TDS on the dividend also. They have brought TDS on dividend also now. So any dividend which is more than 5,000, then the TDS will apply. And that is the reason why you would have, if you are a shareholder, you would have received notices saying that whether you want to issue form 15H, 15G, as the case may be, or you are going to, because PAN number is already captured in your DMAT account, the information is available, they will deduct the tax. If you have not given the PAN number, the deduction will be 20%. So they will deduct the TDS and they have to remit. So this is about, and the deduction will be 10%. And in case of non-resident, it will be 5% or 10%. And that's how it will work if it is under 195. Then that will be a totally different calculation which will happen. This is on dividend. Then they have included the cooperative societies also in the subsection 3 to section. The threshold limit of 50,000, that along with the bank FDs, they have also included cooperative societies. Now the TDS has to be deducted by cooperative societies also if the amount is crossing the limit. In 194C, there was some lacuna which was used by certain companies, and there are two major judgments which have happened: CAT versus Reebok India, Delhi High Court, and the Glenmark Pharmaceuticals, Bombay High Court, where they were playing around and then they said that this material is out, hence this TDS is not applicable. Now, if you are going to give a job work, which is an associated enterprises, which is my relative enterprises, in that scenario, TDS will apply on material also. And it's apply only to the manufacturing, because normally that leakage was happening only in the manufacturing concern. 194J. In 194J, they have now replaced. I don't know why only the technical fees they have done it. Professional fees still continues to be 10%. Technical fees they have put it at 2%. And because there's a lot of litigation, whether it will come under 194J or it will go under 194C. So to put at pari passu, what they have done is whatever is there in 194J, 194C, the same they have applied here. They said 2%. No litigation now. Don't get into litigation. This is what is there, because my intention is to collect taxes and also track the transaction. The TDS provision is only for that purpose, to track the transaction and collect at the earliest point of time. So now they are trying to calculate or collect the taxes at the earliest point of time. Now a lot of issues will happen because this amendment which has happened, because whether royalties, technical fees, whether the sale of consideration, cinematography and all that will come into picture. But professional fees continues to be 10%. Technical fees is at 2%. Now the TDS has to be deducted at 2%. Then they have inserted a new section called 194K. That is for the incomes from units from mutual funds or units of Unit Trust of India. However, again, if the income is less than 5,000, no TDS has to be deducted. Otherwise, TDS has to be deducted and remitted. Then came this new provision 194N, which is effective from 1st September 2019 itself, where they said that amount of cash withdrawn, 2% has to be deducted as a collected and then remitted. That is also now applicable above 1 crore. And now they have amended and they said if it is 20 lakhs, without PAN, the limit is only 20 lakhs. If there is a PAN, then the limit is 1 crore. And if they are not filing the returns, then they will, how do the banks come to know, or the cooperative society will come to know? For that, now they have created a window where they go and verify whether that particular person has filed the return or not. Like what we can see in 3B, GSTR 3B, whether the other person has filed the return or not. Similarly, the bank can also now find out whether the other person has been filing the return or not. If he has not filed, then if the amount remitted or amount withdrawn is more than 1 crore, then the TDS has to apply. The second, next one is 194A, which is applicable to the e-commerce. If you are doing an e-commerce activity, then the TDS will apply on 1% of both sales or service. It will apply through an e-commerce activity. And consequently, they also amended 206AA, where they have said that 206AA will not apply for certain transactions, particularly the 194O. That is, wherever the e-commerce is there, even if the PAN number is not applicable, 20% will not apply. They will go with the lower reduction itself. The major impact which will happen is the because we people travel along outside India. Maybe this year we may not, but next year onwards it may also pop up. There is a tax collection at source, and they have inserted subsection 1G, which will apply to every person. It applies to every person. Every person who is an authorized dealer or a seller of overseas pure packages. So whenever there's a pure package and the amount is more than 7 lakhs, then you have to pay additional amount. Though it is under the liberalized remittances scheme, still you have to pay, and that has to be paid at 1%. Sorry, it applies from rupee 1. The TDS applies from rupee 1. It is not the exemption is 7 lakhs. The tax has to be collected by the authorized dealer from the various participants at the rate of 5%. And this is proposed, this has been approved also. And then they have added under section 1H, where your turnover exceeds 50 lakhs in the previous year, the seller will be required to collect TCS from the buyer at the rate of 0.1%. So this is going to impact everybody. It is going to impact everybody. This is going to be applicable from 1st October, but I don't know whether they're going to come with amendment or not. This is going to impact each and every businessman. See, the cash collection with the department will be much, much higher now. For example, there's a chain. One person sells to the other person 1 crore. This sells another person 60 lakhs. So he will collect, this guy will collect. So collection will be multifold. Cash crunch will happen. Most probably they should amend the act and then say that this will apply only from next year, because already the cash crunch is there. But this is going to have an impact. And this, now they have come with a clarification saying that it will not apply for the exporter. Otherwise, even the exporters, when you collect from the exporter, you have to collect more. Who will pay you more? Why they will pay you more? So they are now trying to say that it has to be collected and then it has to be remitted. And it is proposed to include both buyer and seller. So that is the problem. The problem is both are included. So this is going to create a havoc, but they have not understood it unless until the industry cries. No one is going to feed them. This is what happens, no? In the normal Tamilian solvangla, kolanda aldada paal kudupanga. This is today's trend. So if the industry is not going to react to this, they will know the crunch only from once it is implemented, and then they have added one more section, 234G. 234G, this is not related to TDS. So let us complete the TDS portion and then let us move to the other which are more relevant. Any doubt in this TDS? And one important point of TDS is now they have come out on 13th May 2020 saying that all the rates, only 75% of that will apply. But kindly note, it is effective from 14th May 2020. So any transaction entered or paid, whichever is earlier, is on or after 14th, the new rates will apply, else the full rate will apply. And this rate will apply up to 31/3/2021. So this TDS, so what happens if in the COVID period, the client wouldn't have discussed with you, but you would have deducted at a higher rate. What is the option available? Some participation? Because the provision says that you cannot deduct more than or less than. But as a deductor, you can claim refund. There's a provision also for the refund. So what the option available is, if the other party is agreeing to and he is also not asking for, still you are at fault. So the only option which is available is, don't adjust when you file the first quarter return, which is due in another 2 days. There's another litigation which is going around on that date also. Whatever amount you have deducted, you keep the challan with you. You can adjust in the future payment. Future payment, we can adjust. Up to 1 year, we can use it. So we can use the old challan for the subsequent payment also, and then we can adjust it. Possible. Now coming to that due date of the first quarter, there's a lot of hue and cry going around. The department says it is 31st July, whereas the ordinance, when they amended with only 2 lines, saying wherever the date falls, this is the date. Wherever the other things, all it falls on. Wherever the due dates which are falling between this date to this date, 31st December, for all 31st March 2021. Now this falls under the general category. If the TDS return due dates filing for the first quarter of 2021 falls on a date which is subsequent to the 29th June, that's today's date. So this falls under the general category, and hence it will go to 31st March 2021. However, the department website and the department view is the first quarter, the due date is 31st July 2020. It is advisable to file the return before 31st July 2020. Even in case you have no transaction you are not aware of, ask the assessee to pay 100 rupees, show one transaction for 100 rupees, file the return, and you can revise it anytime. You will save the 200 rupees penalty per day. That is the best way to do it. Because there are 2 options which you have to do. You have to go to the Traces website and say, we don't have a transaction for this month. For this quarter, you don't have a transaction. You have to file a statement online. So that also will have an impact. So that's the reason why it is advisable to pay some paltry amount, put some transaction, and then reverse the transaction when you have the original one. Or for that also you can reverse it and keep the challan open for you to adjust for the future payments. So this is all about TDS provisions, the amendments which have been brought in by Finance Act 2020. Any doubts?
So as of now, we have not received any doubts, sir.
Out of syllabus sollala. Now they have brought in a new return for ATG. Wherever a trust is going to file a return, they are registered under ATG and they have given receipts to other parties, they have to file a return. And if they don't file a return, the penalty is 200 rupees per day, 234G. This is not a penalty, it's a late fee. Along with late fee, there's a penalty of 1 lakh rupees, up to 1 lakh, sorry, 10,000 to 1 lakh. So there are new provisions which have come in, which are making you more agile, more prompt, more clear, and this is going to come from 1st June 2020. So all the ATG donations which you have seen, people are having it, they have to file the return online. They have to do an online filing of return, and they have to give the details about the donee, the PAN number of the donee, the amount which has been come, the mode of payment, all that information have to be filed. And that will be culled out in your annual statement, which is your erstwhile Form 26AS. Form 26AS now will become annual statement, which will cover this transaction also. So anyone filing any transaction report like SFT or this ATG, all that will be captured and pulled into your annual transaction report, and you will have all the information available when you are going to do it. The problem is, if they are going to file a return late, the information will come late. So it is always advisable that all the forms which are downloading from the website, download one day before or the same day on which you are filing the return. So this is another provision which has been inserted, which is going to have an impact. This is what I thought will be relevant. Is there anything else? Let me know. I will just try to cover it up.
So, Parmesan, sir, in this case, so shall we then close the proceedings for the day?
Yes, sir. Please continue, sir.
Okay. Okay, fine.
There seems to
So,
be some.
no, sir, no. Okay. So I thank the speaker for his lucid presentation on the ITR forms especially. So even though we had an say interaction with him for the TDS and the that is the recent provisions whatever related to the trust, but in fact more than all, so when we are filing the return, probably upon sharing the PPT also the initial provisions whatever that we gave regarding the sections which we need to give more importance regarding 139 rule 12, all those things really were awesome. So which we need to, which is also more important than going into the directly into the form. So with this, I really thank the speaker for taking his time and then say for his efforts to bring us such kind of presentation. So I thank all the members who have joined us for the day. So with this, we'll close the proceedings. Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you all.